This is the most anticipated video of the year when it comes to Airbnb. You guys are gonna wanna watch this video over and over again. Guys, my name is Investor Mike. I am the #1 Airbnb coach in the space right now, and I wanna share with you the #1 question I get when it comes to Airbnb. That is, how much does it cost for me to start an Airbnb business? So I'm gonna cover the 4 ways that you can actually get into Airbnb, as well as how much does it cost in terms of time and money to actually start this business. So again, guys, give me a thumbs up on this video. Make sure you subscribe, share it with somebody that maybe want to get in the Airbnb business as well, and let's dive in. Here we go. So how much does it cost? Well, let's first talk about the ways that we can get in. The first way that you can actually get into Airbnb is called co-hosting. Let me explain. I'm gonna give you a 30-second rendition of each way that you can get into this business and what it costs in the constraint of time and money. First way is called co-hosting. Essentially what this means is you're gonna reach out to people who are already doing Airbnb. So you're gonna reach out to Airbnb hosts and you're gonna say, look, I understand that it's going to take you a lot of time to deal with the cleaners. And I understand it takes a lot of time to deal with the guest communication because you got guests that are asking about code to get in and how do I get directions and XYZ. And so I know that you're a busy Airbnb host. And what I would like to do is take that time off your hands. And so for that, what I would like to do is get about 10% of the gross revenue. So just so we know, guys, the gross revenue that the Airbnb host is already collecting on that property, you are going to ask for 10% of gross revenue. So if they're bringing in $3,000 from the guest, you would make $300 per month for that one property. And you can see that this can be very scalable. Now, this is an option to get into Airbnb with 0 money. There is no risk to you because you have no social security needed. There's no risk to you because you have no money invested. It's the landlord's property. They've already got it on Airbnb. All you're doing is coming in and saying, hey, look, I want to take some of the time off of your plate so that you can scale more Airbnbs. So essentially, you're gonna be a property manager for their Airbnb. However, this takes a lot of skill and a lot of time for you to learn how to be an Airbnb co-host. That being said, let me give you an example. If you called me and said, Mike, I know you have a lot of Airbnbs. I would like to be a co-host to take it off of your plate so that you can scale more units. Fair enough. I would say, listen, how many Airbnbs do you currently have? How many are under management? What is your occupancy across the board? I wanna know statistics. If you just called me and said, hey, I wanna be an Airbnb host, but I don't have any Airbnbs, this is my first time, I'm gonna laugh in your face. So here's the thing about this business. When you're thinking about getting into co-hosting, I always recommend getting your own first property first so you have that credibility. You can say, look, I'm already an Airbnb host and here's what my statistics are. Here's my occupancy rate. Here's my average daily rate, right? Here's what we're doing. And here's how I know that I can do the same for yours. If you don't have that credibility, am I ever gonna believe you that you can handle and manage my property? Because look, this business relies on 5-star reviews. And if I get a 4.2, if I get a 3-star or a 1-star because you didn't manage it properly, my business goes down the tubes. So I have to make sure that if someone contacted me and said, hey, I want to be a co-host and manage your properties, that they have experience. That's #1. So it requires a lot of time, but not a lot of money. But again, very difficult to get into space when you don't have the credibility. #2, and that is called rental arbitrage. Rental arbitrage is a simple way of saying this. Guys, all we're gonna do is rent a property. This requires money. You gotta be able to rent a property. Now, the cool thing about it is I teach a method where you don't have to use your social security number. So I don't care if you have a 512 or an 850, means no difference to me. But you can get into this business with very little money, but I'm gonna give you expectations because this is the question I get every day. How much does it cost? That being said, rental arbitrage is a simple way of saying this. We are gonna rent a property from a homeowner. We're gonna go to that homeowner. We're gonna say, Mr. Landlord, love your property. We would like to use your property to put it on short-term rental platforms like Airbnb, vrbo, etc. And what their landlord is gonna do is they're gonna sign an addendum that I give my students that basically says that exact thing. So all it is, rent a property, get the landlord's permission and put it up on Airbnb, and then essentially we can start listing it on Airbnb and start welcoming the guests. The guests help pay for the rent, the guests help pay for the utilities, the rest of the money goes in your pocket. That's rental arbitrage. Now, what does this cost to get into it financially? Biggest question I get. Think about it. You're renting a property. You will have first month of rent. You will have security deposit, and you may have some furniture expenses depending on if it's a furnished property. or not. Realistically, how much does it cost to get into this business? I would say anywhere between $3,000 and $10,000, depending on the size of the property. You get a 1-bedroom, 1-bath, studio, obviously first month in deposit, you're probably looking very low. $1,000, $1,500 in the front and back, that's $3,000, maybe a little furniture, $35,000. So somewhere between $3,000 and $10,000 is what you can expect to get into rental arbitrage for your very first property. Now, the next one down is called corporate leasing. Essentially, corporate leasing is essentially where we're gonna use our EIN again, not our social security number. We're gonna go to apartment complexes, not single family houses. And we are going to pitch the property management company and say, look, we would like to do a corporate lease. Now, the reason why this is a little bit more expensive is because in corporate leasing, you're typically looking for multiple units. So in this case, you may go in and say, look, I'm looking to have traveling nurses and doctors and chiropractors and loved ones staying by the hospital here, and I need to pick up 3 or 4 units from you. Now, in a corporate lease, essentially, these are apartments. These are never furnished. So you're gonna have to furnish each and every one of the units. The way that you factor your furnishing cost is 2 times the square footage. So if the square footage is 1,500 square foot in an apartment, figure $3,000 to furnish that 1 unit. You pick up 3 units, you're talking $9,000, okay? And then the cool thing about it is the deposit's usually low, like $250 per unit. And there's generally no last payment. So really the cost in getting into corporate leasing is essentially going to be the first month and the furniture cost. That's your corporate leasing expense to get into it, all right? So that's a little bit more expensive than rental arbitrage, where we're just going to a homeowner and getting 1 single unit at a time, okay? And last but not least, and that is called purchasing. I teach a method that's a little bit different. So let me give you an example of what purchasing means. All it means is that you're gonna buy a property in a great location. Remember, in real estate, location, location, location. So now we're gonna buy a property. Now, let me tell you about buying. The average homeowner is putting down somewhere between $30,000 and $50,000 as a down payment on a property. So you have that expense on the front end. Also, take into consideration at the time of this video, interest rates are between 7 and 9%. Even on a DCR loan, you're gonna be putting down 7 to 8, 9%. So interest rates are very high. And so what's happening is, even if you were to buy a property and then put it up on Airbnb, the margins between how much your mortgage payment is and what you can bring in from the Airbnb host shrinks, because a lot of the payment is going towards the mortgage payment because interest rates are very high. So right now, as we sit right now, the time of this video, I probably would not go into that option of actually purchasing right this second. However, based on data, what I'm hearing is that March or April of 2024, we're gonna start to have a correction based on the prices of houses going down and interest rates coming down. That's the time to strike when that iron is hot, which will be somewhere around 6 to 8 months from today. That being said, what I teach is a method where you get into rental arbitrage, do a few units, get into the game, take the cash flow that you're gonna be making from the rental arbitrage, and then use that money to get into a purchase. That's the natural progression. So do 3 or 4 rental arbitrages, and then the cash flow that comes in, you can take that money and then use that for the down payment for a purchase. That is basically how it works. So let's recap really quickly. Co-hosting, most amount of time, 0 money invested. Okay, that's really where people that don't have any money, but they're like, look, I got a lot of time, but I have no money. That would be co-hosting. However, remember that if you're gonna go that route, you probably wanna have at least 1 Airbnb first, because I'm never gonna believe you if you have no portfolio already and you have not managed any Airbnbs. You can't come to me and say, I've never done this before, but I wanna be a co-host for you. I'm not willing to lose and ruin my reputation and lose my 5-star rating because you say you want to be a co-host. It's just not going to happen. So I'm looking for experienced people. That's co-hosting, okay? Number 2, rental arbitrage, $3,000 to $10,000 to get into the game. That's going to be including your first month rent, your security deposit, and very little furniture, because what I can do is I can help you actually find furnished properties. So figure $3,000 to $10,000 there. Okay, and very little time, because there's a few softwares that I can share with you that you can actually automate this process. Okay, number 3 is called corporate leasing. You guys that have a little bit more capital, and you're looking, I don't want to play in the kiddie pool, why don't we just go straight for apartments and go pick up 2, 3, 4, 5 units at a time, okay? Because I can put it on a debit card, I can put it on a credit card, a business credit card, and I can scale much faster. That would be corporate leasing, okay? You're gonna have the expense of furnishing each property. You're talking about 2 times the rent payment, which would be, say it's a $1,500 rent payment, you're talking $3,000 to furnish each property, okay? So depending on how many properties you have, that's how much you can basically expect to pay. But you can scale much faster. And in this game, I'm gonna be honest with you, when you're talking about the Airbnb game, one property is not gonna change the rest of your life. You're gonna need to get multiple properties in order for it to be any kind of financial gain where it makes sense. As we get down, obviously, like what I'm talking about is corporate leasing is obviously much faster because you can pick up multiple units at one time at an apartment complex, okay? Really easy, and I can share with you guys how to do this as well. And last but not least is actually purchasing, where you're purchasing, you're putting a large down payment, $30,000 to $50,000 on average, okay? And then you're gonna furnish the place and get it up on Airbnb. However, interest rates are very bad right now. Not gonna be my first recommendation, but I can only give you my recommendation on what I would do right now. What I wouldn't do is actually purchase because of the interest rates. But what I'm teaching is a method. Start with rental arbitrage. Get a few units under your belt. Then you can either go to co-hosting, because now you have the credibility, you have the units under your belt. So when you go to someone and say, hey, look, I've got a couple properties, my occupancy rate is above 80%, I'm doing really well, I would like to take this off your plate. Now a homeowner's gonna go, okay, cool. It makes sense for you to help me because you've got a good track record. Okay, or you can start with rental arbitrage and then say, you know what? I'm tired of doing single family properties. Now I've got 3 or 4 under my belt. Why don't we go to corporate leasing so we can go pick up 3, 4, 5 at a time? And these are apartments, and then both furnish those bad boys, get them up and running, and then just start cash flowing there, right? So there's a lot of ways to make money in this, but I will tell you this. I'm gonna end the video by saying this. Most people fail in the Airbnb space. Okay, it's a very, very high failure rate. It's because if you can breathe, you can get into this game. If you have a heart rate, you can be an Airbnb host. There's no requirements, there's no licensing, there's no education requirements. So you say, look, I want to be an Airbnb host. And because of the high reason you can get into it, everybody can get into it, the failure rate is very high. My job is to help you mitigate those risks, give you the understanding of what it takes for time and what it takes for investment to get into each of these avenues. Watch this video over and over again. There's just 4 ways that you can really get into this. Pick which one works for you based on your time and based on how much money you have that you can spend. Be honest with you, anywhere between 3 and 10K is really where you want to be to start. Okay, get a couple units, then go to co-hosting, or then go to corporate leasing, and then get a couple units and then say, you know what, maybe it's like April, May of 2024, there's a correction, now we can get into actually purchasing, because what I would like to do, okay, is have you do 1, 2, 3, 4, probably 3 to 4 rental arbitrage deals, and then the next natural progression will be like, all right, cool, let's make a purchase. Get 3 or 4 rental arbitrage, then make a purchase. Because here's the difference with purchase. You are going to get the appreciation of the value as it goes up when you purchase. With rentals, you don't get that. It's strictly cash flow. But you also get depreciation for your taxes when you purchase. Okay? The reason most people fail is because they don't know what they're doing. They don't know any idea about property and market research, so they get into this game thinking they picked the right property in the right market, and now they're coming out of pocket every month because they're not able to cover the rent and utilities because they picked the wrong area. And they have no credibility, and they're gonna call a landlord and say, Mr. Landlord, love your property, love it, I wanna rent it, okay, I wanna put your property on Airbnb. Landlord goes, okay, cool, so tell me about yourself. How many properties do you have? How many Airbnbs do you have? What is your reputation? How many references do you have I can contact? I wanna know about your business. And you go, Mr. Landlord, I don't have anything. And the landlord goes, so you're asking me to be a guinea pig for your business? And you say, yeah, but I really love your property. Hello, Mr. Landlord, Mr. Landlord, Mr. That's what happens, okay? So, if you guys want help, okay, let me share with you how I can get you your first month of rent absolutely free. Never pay the first month rent. Number 2, you don't have to worry about furnishing a property. I'll help you cover that. And you'll have the #1 Airbnb coach walking you through step-by-step, holding your hand and say, this is what you need to do now. This is your next step. Here's your next step. And here's what my students are doing and how they're doing so well. Just model, mimic, and master what they are doing. My name is Investor Mike. Love each and every one of you guys. Make sure you thumbs it up this video and subscribe to the channel. And if you want help doing this right way so I can help you mitigate the risk of doing it the wrong way and not being a statistic with what everybody else is doing and why they are failing. Put a message to me in the comment, just say something like, hey, help, put the word help, put the word Airbnb, and let me reach out to you directly, and let's figure out if it makes sense for us to work together. I'll see you guys in the next video. Let's roll.